Police High Command assigned special team of investigators to probe yesterday's gun slaying of a minister of religion. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Doreen Samuels. Also this evening, mob justice. St. James residents kill man who they say stabbed a young woman to death.
Taking revenge. St. Mary residents vow to use deadly force on sharks after one is blamed for killing a fisherman.
Ramp up the investments. IMF pleads with private sector to take advantage of favorable economic climate.
And in the financial week, the dollar continues to hold.
There's also sports commentary and weather in this newscast, but before the break, the feedback question.
This evening we're asking, what is your reaction to the killing of the young minister in a church in St. Catherine yesterday?
Share comments online, facebook.com/television Jamaica, and tweet us at Television Jam.
Please stay with us. Primetime News returns right after this break. Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to folks on onespotmedia.com.
Up first this evening, the Police High Command has assigned a special team of investigators to probe yesterday's gun slaying of Pastor James Johnson.
The 29-year-old pastor was shot 7 times by a lone gunman on the compound of the Church of God of Prophecy in Old Harbour Road, St. Catherine.
Deputy Commissioner in charge of crime, Selvin Hay, told TVJ News that a team from the Major Investigation Division, MID, has been assigned to find the killer. TVJ's Anthony Lugg has the details.
Pastors gathered at the Church of God of Prophecy on Old Harbour Road in St. Catherine on Friday morning. But the circumstances which led to the gathering have rocked the church community. Shortly after 5 Thursday evening, men entered this office on the church compound and killed 29-year-old minister James Johnson. Chairman of the Spanish Town Area Committee and Spanish Town Revival, Bishop Rowan Edwards, says the killing of Mr. Johnson is troubling.
This is something that is not looking good for the nation. This is very troubling to know that gunmen could have walked into a church so brazen, so bold, and take out somebody who is in the clergy.
Senior pastor for the church, Bishop Junior Headlam, spoke with our news team.
Members are very distressed. Actually, I am trying to bring the church together this evening for, just for us to talk and pray and see where we go from there.
Bishop Edwards wants the church to take a tougher stance.
This should not drive fear in none of our hearts. The enemy must be defeated, and God must get the glory.
And with such a brazen attack, there are questions about whether the church will be closing its doors.
Throwing in the towel is never a consideration. We're going nowhere. We're going to be right here continuing to do the work of the Lord.
In the meantime, the incident was also condemned in Friday's sitting of the Senate. Leader of Government Business, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, said if there are no barriers to violence, the state must impose extraordinary measures.
Because it must be that Jamaica returns to a place where you can go to church at 5 o'clock in the evening to teach a class and not expect, not fear, not think that it could reasonably occur, that someone will enter behind you.
A moment of silence was also observed at a football match in the parish. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
In the meantime, in St. James, the police were kept busy between Thursday night and Friday morning following 2 separate murders in Norwood Gardens. A 19-year-old man was killed by a mob in the community after it said that he stabbed a 20-year-old woman to death at her home hours earlier. TVJ's Kalisha Williams has that story.
2 murders in Norwood Gardens, St. James, in less than 24 hours. One believed to be a reprisal killing. First, 20-year-old Cynthia James was stabbed to death at her home in a section of the community Thursday afternoon. Her family is still coming to grip with the tragedy.
So him walk upon me and go in my man live by the said house. That's my son, his uncle. And when he come out back and said, Daddy, he said, Cindy dead. I said, dead? How you mean Cindy dead? He said, then kill Cindy. Then kill Cindy in the house. And when me get up, really get up, the time this drop out of my hand. Feel white man.
What kind of granddaughter was she to you?
Loving, and have manners. Loving, have manners when I say have manners. Look at what I say to him in America. You hard in me talk. Sometimes I have to rough him up. Step up in him out.
Sometime Thursday night, it is said the suspect, a 19-year-old man also from Norwood Gardens, was hacked to death by a mob in the community. His body was discovered in bushes on Friday morning. The deaths push up the murder tally in the parish, though it still remains 68% below the levels of last year.
Oh, it's there now, a goal compared to back then, and nothing so I really want to go back there, so. I wouldn't really want to go back there, so. So, if I have a job, you know, if you cover that thing, you know, because we can't take this.
Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
Following the lead of the lower house, the Senate today voted to extend the state of public emergency in St. Catherine North until January next year. While there was full support from opposition senators, the debate was not without jarring questions about its impact. TVJ's Herman Green reports.
After quoting lower crime figures compared to last year, government senators on Friday presented one main argument for seeking an extension of the state of emergency in the St. Catherine North Police Division.
We need more time. Security forces need more time to realistically address and erode crime and violence in the relevant areas in St. Catherine North.
But despite stating their intention to support the bill, opposition senators listed concerns.
In St. Catherine and in St. James, we need to also look, as we are saving lives, we need to look at the impact we are having on those of us who are alive. Because small businesses have been so battered and bruised, even as the owners are celebrating the success in the reduction of murder, they themselves are experiencing grave hardship.
Issues facing members of the security forces was also scrutinized.
The pay that they're getting is clearly too low. The food that they're getting, great complaint. One reported to me that their breakfast was unheated sausage from a tin with 2 boiled dumplings. If we intend that this is our strategy, it is only reasonable that we review how we are going to ensure a major component of the strategy is treated.
Opposition senators even questioned if the measure was truly having an impact on criminals.
When they walk into that church yesterday, St. Ransford, and shoot that minister of religion with a state of emergency present, walk out having fired 7 shots, and have not been apprehended. That certainly tells me that the criminals are not on the run and the Prime Minister is wrong on that.
But government senators countered.
If the criminals are so daring, so brazen, in a state of emergency, what would happen if we never had a state of emergency? It really begs the question.
That is the question.
That's the question.
The Prime Minister has asked the Minister of National Security to have discussions with the heads of the security forces to consider stances to see what, if any, adjustments can be made.
The extension was approved with 19 senators voting for it. The other 2 were absent.
Deadly shark attack this week.
Residents in Arokobesa St. Mary say they will be killing any shark they come in contact with after one of the creatures was blamed for the death of a fisherman. Details from TVJ's Krista Campbell.
You know, we haven't seen anything like this before.
A sad day for fishers and divers in Arokobesa St. Mary after news of a deadly shark attack this week. The people say well-known diver and fisher 43-year-old Nicholas Malcolm of Pineapple in Oteria St. Anne went diving on Wednesday with a colleague known as Juby.
Juby said the 2 of them a swimmer come down. When him looking so one barry quarter, so him shoot the barry. So when him look back, him see him fight the barry, he eagle eye otherwise, you know. So when him say he can't manage the barry, so nobody really try to go back go help him. So in this come along and wait for him. And when he looking to see him.
When Mr. Malcolm did not return, the coastline was searched and some of his personal items, including his cell phone, were found. On Thursday, the Marine Police, Coast Guard, divers and fishers in the area found other personal items they say pointed to a horrible attack.
You know, a piece of the chest, impression that, the shark is taking out a piece of his chest, because the impression sure on the piece of dive suit that we retrieved, is a round sugar edge, with teeth mark inside in the middle of it. So it basically that showed that it is a shark, because he also have a middle teeth impression on the piece of chest piece that has been retrieved. We also get a piece of his shorts, a piece of it clinch out, so you can see there definitely that he also been grabbed in his side.
The man will always pass me and I hear him up and everything, and him always shooting barracuda. Him always have 3-4 barracuda in hand, you know what I mean? 2 of them always go out there. I feel it for him.
While family and friends mourn the loss, they note it's not Mr. Malcolm's first dangerous encounter at sea. A few years ago, they say the very barracuda he once hunted attacked him.
We want to do one plastic surgery, face part, bite up, chop it off.
Without a body to identify and claims of an increase in whales and sharks in the area, the people are threatening to use lethal force if they come across any of the deadly creatures. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Our top story today, the Police High Command assigns special team of investigators to probe yesterday's gun slaying of Minister of Religion James Johnson. And still ahead this evening, ramp up the investments. IMF pleads with private sector to take advantage of favorable economic climate. And in business news, the dollar continues to hold firm. We'll be right back.
A bank for your mortgage. We'll cut your mortgage rate in half.
Welcome back. Continuing the news. We have first images of the 28 Jamaican fishermen who were involved in the boat tragedy off the Colombian coast. Clearance has been given for the repatriation of the 28 Jamaican fishermen who were rescued last week by the Colombian Coast Guard after their boat caught fire and sank. Some of the fishermen sustained first and second degree burns. We have more in this report from Islas Television in Colombia.
On the morning of Sunday, the ARC ship San Andres was received, which brought on board the 28 Jamaicans rescued after the boat in which they were transported have burned down in high seas. Rear Admiral Juan Francisco Herrera explained the condition in which the rescue were found.
We have 5 people who arrived with first and second degree burns. At the moment, we are carrying out first assistance with our naval health staff. But after we finish, we will transfer them to the departmental hospital to carry out all the procedures and verify the real situation in which they are. The other 23 people are with Dr. Maria del Pilar in the process of initiating all the actions so that they can be returned to Jamaica as soon as possible.
On his part, Major Juan Manuel Londoño of Combat Command No. 3, who was presented at the time of the Manuel Londoño, did.
My crew was in the city of Cali. The aviation school was alerted and we traveled from Cali to the island of San Andres, where we were refueled, and in coordination with the command and control center of the force, among others, we made the necessary coordination in order to do the work.
The captain of the ship, Rear Magic Ordain Campbell, explained how the events of the conflagration happened.
I was sleeping. Somebody else was driving that boat approximately 9 o'clock. I heard that diver come outside and said, "Hey, fire, fire." When I went upstairs to see what's going on, the fire was like started big already. Like so them throw, some people tell them no water, so them still eventually throw that water. When them throw the water, it started to spread in that fire. That fire run from upstairs of the building on the boat top, run because it start from the electrical planter. So it run from upstairs and fall down on the bottom deck, which we have gas drums, drinking water.
The 28 shipwrecked fishermen of the Real Magic had a matter of internal conflagration by which they had to leave the ship and had to navigate in 3 rafts for approximately 18 hours. The director of Migración Colombia in the department explained what will happen now with these 28 people.
We are doing all the procedures in immigration matters to proceed to send them back to Jamaica. Actually, they do not have any documentation, so with all the Immigration Team Colombia, we will be doing the corresponding process.
Some residents of Harborview St. Andrew are literally living on the edge with their homes precariously perched on the banks of a gully. The danger escalated in May this year when the walls of several homes came tumbling down. We have the details in this report.
Residents showed us pictures of the authorities visiting the area in May and promising help. But 4 months later, still nothing. And the earth under their home is steadily eroding with each drop of rain. Some residents have tried to help themselves by making zinc fences, but that's not expected to resist the effects of the erosion.
NAA agency, AgPen, all of them is aware of it, but nobody is saying anything to the citizens. And we are left in a situation, we are in a storm-prone zone now, and any further heavy rain is going to further damage our property, and nobody is there to talk to us as to when we're going to get that repaired. And we are saying we elect our government officials and mayors and politicians to represent us on a constituent level. And here is a community where the constituent level, people's lives are being affected. Men are already robbing people property, and nobody is scared. People, you come out your backyard, it is exposed. Your life is at risk, and nobody is talking to us.
Retaining wall and homes are not the only things precariously placed. Leaning light poles are still in the middle of the gully, posing a threat to life and property. Plastic bottles also litter the drain. The residents here know all too well how plastics could block the waterway, causing flood waters which could wash away the remaining foundation of their homes.
No one will be going to the airport pretty soon because we have debris, light posts in the gullies that are behind there, and nothing will be able to pass. So they're just hurting themselves and hurting our country. What happens when people are coming from abroad or traveling to the airport? It's not just affecting us in Harborview, it's going to affect other people living elsewhere. Even the government themselves might be going to the airport to take a flight and can't pass.
The project is the responsibility of several agencies, including the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC. The KSAMC's Chief Executive Officer, Robert Hill, said a long-term solution is being worked on to address the problem, but funding it all at once is an issue. He said another meeting is planned to discuss the issue next week, but residents say they don't want to hear plans and explanations.
We need reinforced walls. We need a proper gully behind our homes. And they need to come, evaluate, and actually do something. Sorry, they've come a million times. They have evaluated a million times. Now we just need action. We're tired of the talking, the photo op, and all those wonderful things. Do something. It's time for action.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling on the private sector to invest more. He says despite positive economic conditions, there's still a reluctance to invest. TVJ's Andrew Laidley reports.
Why isn't there more economic activity, more risk-taking, more investments from the private sector?
The call from Prime Minister Andrew Holness as he urged the private sector to invest more as the government pushes for economic growth to improve. A similar cry from IMF Mission Chief Dr. Uma Ramakrishnan, who said that the economic climate is conducive to investment.
Strong economic fundamentals in Jamaica and sustained policy implementation of the authorities' reform program provide the private sector with an unprecedented opportunity to expand domestic investment, generate economic opportunities, and become the growth engine for Jamaica.
So why is the private sector slow to pump money into the economy? Prime Minister Holness had a few ideas.
We cannot ignore the psychology of investment in Jamaica, the culture and the history that has created a business class, an entrepreneurial class that for decades responded to the incentives that government policy gave, and the incentive was to invest in government debt.
And Prime Minister Holness stressed that he isn't playing the blame game.
This is not a blaming of the private sector. This is more an encouragement to the private sector that now is the time to get on board. Now is the time to make the investments.
Both were speaking at the end of the IMF's fourth review of Jamaica's standby arrangement. Ms. Ramakrishnan told journalists that the agreement remains on track, with Jamaica meeting all the targets that were set. The IMF board will review the findings in November, and if it agrees with Ms. Ramakrishnan and her team, another $226 million will be made available to the country. It will bring the total accessible funds to $1.2 billion, which Jamaica can get to spend if the need arises. For the Business Day, I'm Andrew Lately.
And the Holness administration is in preparation mode for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Cabinet yesterday completed 3 days of deliberations as it prepares for the next budget. It discussed, among other things, the macroeconomic profile for the next budget. It discussed, among other things, the macroeconomic profile for 2018-2019 and projections for 2019-2020. The Cabinet is expected to convene another series of consultations soon to refine aspects of the overall planning and budgeting framework for 2019-2020.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says his ministry will take action against facilities that deprive families access to their relatives' medical records. Dr. Tufton was responding to reports that several cases have been reported to human rights advocacy group Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ, of negative experiences with health facilities. The most recent JFJ case involved the University Hospital of the West Indies and the parents of a 14-month-old child who is being treated for cancer. Dr. Tufton says there are procedures that should be followed to preserve the rights of patients.
As far as the protocols and the procedures are concerned, once they are followed and the particular person is entitled to access those records, then we should not withhold the records as long as those procedures are followed. So I would need to find out exactly what the specifics of that situation is. Even though the individuals were entitled, then clearly a breach would have occurred, and remedy would have to be sought.
This evening, relatives of a woman who was murdered at her home in St. James in August last year are upset that they have not received an update from the police on the investigation. The killing was caught on camera, but the family is wondering if the case went cold after the woman was buried.
It's 1 year on from the August 2017 murder of Millicent Clark Barrett, and her family says it appears the police have fallen asleep on the investigation.
We want to know why nothing's been done about it, okay? I don't usually get emotional, but, this is stupidness, and nothing's been done by the police or the government or nobody, and we want to know why nothing's been sorted out.
Surveillance footage shows the moment on Mrs. Barrett's home the same morning she was killed. Mrs. Barrett's son says the family has reached out to the police more than once.
I had an interview with the police officer, just asked what was going on, have you got any leads? People rumour and talk about stuff, and we can only go by rumour and talk. So we say, well, have you questioned this name? Or because we've heard this name. And they look at you like expecting us to solve it. Like I say, I'm Englishman. People can just about understand me.
The family had a memorial service for Mrs. Barrett recently. Some came from England, and they are hoping to get word from the police before going back home. Percival Latouche says the killing of returning residents continues to be a deterrent to them coming back to Jamaica.
1,000. Last year we were expecting about 9,000 to come back home. They were only at, 900 came? All the houses are still locked up.
What do you think account for that?
Because of the murder rate, especially for last year, they were 13, 14, up to this year, May, they were
too much.
14 people got murdered.
We got word late this evening from the communications arm of the police force that a meeting has been arranged with the family for tomorrow. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
The issue of limited resources for firefighters is again in the spotlight. This comes after a house which was destroyed by fire in Mandeville, Manchester, could have been saved if the brigade had the required equipment. The fire department in the parish had to call for assistance from out of town, but by the time the backup arrived, the damage was already done. Details in this report.
Look at the house. In the middle of Mandeville town and no water to this fire.
That resident expressing his frustration with the limited resources available to the Manchester Fire Brigade. His dissatisfaction follows the destruction of a 6-bedroom house, resulting in millions of dollars in losses in the parish Thursday afternoon. The resident, who said he was early on the scene, is furious that although firefighters responded quickly, they were unable to put out the blaze because there was no water in the hydrants.
A house burning down on Perch Road, right there in Mega Mart in Mandeville, Manchester. And there's no water to out this fire. The house burned down, burned out because lack of water. What will we need? What will it take to upgrade the system? The fireman them stand up off there, watch the fire burn and can't do nothing about it. We look at water where them come with, couldn't even start out the fire.
Assistant Superintendent in the Manchester Fire Department, Emric Needham, confirmed the resident's account.
We came on the scene pretty early after we received the call. However, the roof of the building was
Department Emric Needham confirmed the resident's account.
We came on the scene pretty early after we received the call. However, the roof of the building was completely engulfed. After the unit was exhausted, there was no water supply in the area, so we had to go to the nearest hydrant, which is at Racecourse Road.
He said that when the water in the tanker was finished, they had to call for assistance. However, there was none available because all the other tankers in the parish were down. This fire truck arriving on the scene from Maypen Clarendon, 43 kilometers away, but the damage had already been done.
We called for assistance from the parish council. Their units were down. We called from NWA. Their units are also down. So our nearest backup unit came all the way from Maypen.
Assistant Superintendent Needham said the house could be saved if they had enough water or another fire truck in the parish.
We have a water supply. We would be able to curtail the fire somewhat, and it wouldn't have spread to some area as fast as it did.
The residents are renewing calls for the government to improve the fire service in Manchester.
People can't burn up in them house with them children. What if one of the super plus or what if one of the big mall them were burning down? What would we take to out it? If we couldn't out a little house fire, what would we use to out a mall in the town?
Andrew Laidley, TVJ News.
The financial week, news from overseas, and our bite of the week. They're all after the break. Please stay tuned.